On the 30th of March 2026, a march through a South African city called Kugompo turned violent. By nightfall, cars were burning, Nigerian-owned shops had been looted, and according to Nigerian community leaders, at least 24 Nigerians were in hospital. Police put the number lower. The city used to be called East London. It's on the country's southeast coast. If that sentence sounds familiar, it should. According to Xenowatch, a database run by researchers, this is the latest entry in a ledger that stretches back more than 30 years. More than 1,000 documented incidents, almost 700 deaths, and almost every single victim African. So today we're trying to answer one question. Why does this keep happening?
There can be no excuse for the attacks on the homes and businesses of foreign nationals.
To understand what ignited Kugompo, you have to go back a few weeks. On March the 14th, a Nigerian businessman named Solomon Ogbonna Eziko was installed in a ceremony by the local Igbo community. He was hailed as Igwe Ndigbo na East London. I hope I got that right. The video went viral. For many Nigerians, this is normal. The Igbo have installed ceremonial Igwe figures in diaspora communities around the world, while the businessmen who act as cultural figureheads, not kings in any legal sense, just diaspora tradition. But South African law reserves kingship for recognized royal houses, and the Eastern Cape House of traditional leaders, whose jurisdiction covers Kugompo, called Eziko's installation a flagrant violation of customary protocols. The Amarambe Kingdom demanded redress.
Now, the community of Mahahabe is demanding Solomon's departure, insisting that his coronation disrespects South Africa's sovereignty and traditional authority.
The Nigerian High Commission issued a statement on the 26th of March saying no coronation had taken place. It was, they said, a cultural festivity. But a coalition had already started mobilizing. Operation Dudula, a group we'll come back to. Action SA, a party sitting in parliament. The Patriotic Alliance, whose leader is currently Minister of Sports in Ramaphosa's cabinet. Plus two smaller anti-migrant networks. A single march with vigilante roots, parliamentary opposition, and government all holding the same banner. On the 30th of March, they marched, and by dusk, cars were burning. 3 days later, Minister in the presidency, Kugmpo, called the installation a kindergarten gimmick with no legal effect. On the 10th of April, Eziko himself issued a statement.
My name is Chief Solomon Ogbonna Eziko. I want to make it clear I was not crowned as a king. I am not a king. I do not claim to be a king.
But none of that stopped the violence. Nigeria's Deputy High Commissioner apologized alongside the mission in Pretoria. Nigeria's consul in Johannesburg started asking community leaders to draw up lists of possible repatriation. Now, if you've followed South Africa for any length of time, you've seen this before. So, let's go back to the tape. Xenophobic violence in post-apartheid South Africa begins in 1994, the same year the country becomes a democracy. In the Alexandra Township, residents form a group called Operation Boyelekaya. That is Zulu for go back home. They go door to door, round up suspected foreigners and march them to police stations. And the rhetoric at street level is matched by rhetoric at the top. By 1998, South Africa's first Home Affairs Minister, Mangosuthu, was telling reporters that, quote, with an illegal alien population estimated at between 2.5 million and 5 million, it is obvious that the socio-economic resources of the country are further being burdened. End quote. These are disputed numbers, but it has a specific framing. The template was then set. For the next decade, smaller waves keep arriving. A Mozambican thrown from a moving train in 1998. 4 killed in a city in 2006. At least 47 Somali traders murdered in Western Cape Township in 2 months that same year. Then May 2008, mobs in Alexandra armed with clubs and machetes chanting what they translated to reporters as "kick out the foreigners." The violence spread across 7 of South Africa's 9 provinces. By the time the army is deployed, per Human Rights Watch, 62 people are dead. 21 of them are South African nationals, mistaken for foreigners or killed trying to protect them. Nearly 100,000 people are displaced. The image that came out of that wave was of a Mozambican man named Ernesto, burned alive at an informal settlement east of Johannesburg. No one was ever charged for the crime. His case was closed in 2010. Then March 2015, the Zulu king, Goodwill, tells a rally in Pongola that foreigners should, quote, pack their belongings and be sent back. Weeks later, violence erupts in Durban. It spreads to Johannesburg. The Sunday Times photographer James Otway is there when a Mozambican street hawker named Emmanuel Sitole is beaten and stabbed to death in Alexandria in April. This man was killed over a stolen pack of cigarettes. His photographs run on the front page. 2 men are convicted of murder. The South African Human Rights Commission later finds the king's speech was, quote, hurtful and harmful, but stops short of calling it incitement. And then September 2019, Johannesburg and Pretoria. Per Human Rights Watch, at least 12 people were killed, about 50 Nigerian-owned businesses destroyed. According to the Nigerian Union of South Africa, a Nigerian airline, Air Peace, offers free flights home. Around 640 Nigerians board those planes. In Lagos, Nigerians retaliate by looting ShopRite and MTN. President Ramaphosa, speaking at Robert Mugabe's funeral, apologizes. Quote, I stand before you as a fellow African to express my regret. April 2022, Deep Slot. A group aligned with Operation Dudula goes door to door demanding South African ID cards. When Elvis Nyati, a 43-year-old Zimbabwean migrant and father of 4, can't produce one, he's beaten, stoned and burned alive. 7 are charged, but all are granted bail. 2 months later, the Yuval market in Johannesburg, packed with Congolese and Nigerian food stores, it was burned down. The cause was officially undetermined. A Miss South African finalist named Chidima Adeshina, born in South Africa to a Nigerian father, is forced to withdraw after a xenophobic public campaign. She goes on to win Miss Universe Nigeria instead. 31 years. More than 1,000 documented incidents, and almost 700 dead. So here's the question that matters. Over 3 decades, we've had the same script, same provinces, same kinds of victims. The pattern isn't the evidence. The pattern is the pattern, which means the real question isn't what happened in Kugompo. It is who benefits from this. So why is this happening now? Start with the material conditions. Unemployment in South Africa currently sits at 31.4%. Youth unemployment almost 44%. Inequality is measured with something called the Gini coefficient. By that measure, South Africa is still today the most unequal country in the world. The Zondo Commission, which investigated the Zuma years, found at least 57 billion rand of public money was stolen during what South Africans called state capture. Eskom, the electricity company, collapsed and then partially recovered. Many municipalities, especially in Gauteng, are barely functioning. Xenophobic violence every single time erupts in townships and informal settlements. The places where poor black South Africans and poor African migrants are competing face to face for the same jobs, the same shops, the same rented rooms. It doesn't happen in the suburbs, not in the cities, down the street. Now, here's what is different about 2026. In June 2021, a group called Operation Dudula launched in Soweto. Dudula means to push out. It started with door-to-door ID checks, clinic blockades, and raids on the informal corner shops South Africans called spaza shops. This is street vigilantism, basically. Operation Dudula says it's a response to crime, drug dealing, and undocumented migration. Their leader, Zanda Dabula, describes it as defending South African communities. That is their framing. In late 2023, Operation Dudula registered with the Electoral Commission as a political party. In November last year, the Gauteng High Court ruled Dudula's tactics unlawful and unconstitutional. and found the group had incited violence and hate speech on grounds of nationality. Outside the court, Dabola said the group would keep doing what it was doing. Which brings us back to Kugompo. Look at who organized that march, Operation Dudula. A registered political party under court interdict for unconstitutional conduct. Action SA, a party sitting in the National Assembly. The Patriotic Alliance, whose leader Gayton Mackenzie is right now the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture in Ramaphosa's government of national unity. So what used to be street vigilantism is now an electoral platform. And South Africa votes for its local governments between November this year and January next year. 508 parties on the ballot. Operation Dudula is contesting its first municipal elections as a party. So when Kugompo happened, the coalition wasn't a mob. This seems like a rehearsal. Now, the grievance that fuels this is not invented. Anyone telling you otherwise isn't being serious. Unemployment here is real. Municipal collapse is real. The state has failed to deliver year after year, budget after budget. And yes, Nigerian criminal networks exist in South Africa. In 2019, Nigeria's own High Commissioner in Pretoria, Kabiru Bala, said more than 6,000 Nigerians were in South African prisons or under investigation. The Institute for Security Studies, based in Pretoria, has documented Nigerian involvement in cocaine and mandrax distribution. They also participated in advance fee fraud, in human trafficking. But here's the other side of this argument. In April 2024, the South African police minister at the time, Becky Cele, was asked about this directly. Quote, South Africa's prisons have almost 14,000 foreigners and about 144,000 South Africans. That is a ratio of about 1 to 10. 10 South African prisoners for every 1 foreigner. The ISS analyst who mapped those Nigerian networks, Martin Ewi, included his own caveat that, quote, the organized crime landscape was dominated by both foreigners and South Africans. And this is what the academic research going back 2 decades, work by scholars like Lauren Landau at Wits, Francis Nyamjo at Cape Town, Michael Neocosmos at Rhodes, they keep finding these same results. Migrants are not the cause of South Africa's crisis. They are the available explanation. And an available explanation in a country with this much unresolved anger is politically useful. Pew Research in 2018 found 62% of South Africans considered immigrants a burden. Afrobarometer in January of this year found 83% want their government to reduce or eliminate entry of foreign job seekers, the highest of 38 African countries surveyed. But in the same data set, ISS Africa analysts concluded opposition to immigration in South Africa is driven, quote, less by xenophobia and more by socio-economic concerns. Both things can be true at once. People are hungry and someone is choosing who gets blamed for it. This is the case in South Africa. But how does it affect the people today? October 2007, Rosenval, Johannesburg, a reggae singer named Lucky Dube was shot dead in his car. The court heard they had mistaken him for a Nigerian. He was born in Emelo. February 2013, a Mozambican taxi driver named Mido Masia, dragged behind a police van in Davington, died in a police cell. 8 officers were eventually convicted of murder. April 2015, Emmanuel Sitole, beaten to death in Alexandra. April 2022, Elvis Nyati, a father of 4, beaten and burned in Diepsloot. And Nigerians specifically, Tochukwu Nadi, in police custody 2016. Tangod Okoro, shot by the Flying Squad 2018. Maxwell Okoye, killed in a Ladysmith police raid 2019. Chinonso Obiaju, 17 years old, shot in Roadport on his way to a shop that same year. If you are a Nigerian watching this, in Lagos, in Owerri, in Enugu, in Abuja, you may have family in South Africa. The official count is around 30,000 registered Nigerians living in South Africa. The Nigerian Union claims 800,000. The honest answer is nobody really knows the number. What they do know, every election season is the protocol. Keep a low profile. Don't wear the Super Eagles jersey. If the rumors start, close the shop. In September 2019, around 640 Nigerians boarded Air Peace flights out of Johannesburg. Among the largest peacetime repatriations of Africans from another African country in the post-apartheid era. In April 2026, today, as this goes out, Nigeria's consul in Johannesburg is asking community leaders to draw up a list again. One last thing, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison on the 11th of February 1990. The first documented xenophobic attacks in a free South Africa in the same township, Alexandra, were in December 1994. 7 months after his inauguration, the Nigerian philosopher Olufemi Taiwo, he teaches at Cornwall, describes the post-apartheid South African constitution as a promise of what he calls singular citizenship. One class of a person, one set of rights, whoever walks in is in. Desmond Tutu used to translate the isiXhosa word Ubuntu like this. A person with Ubuntu is diminished when other people are humiliated. South Africa votes for its local government between November and January. 27 million voters, 508 parties. And this time, for the first time, the anti-migrant platforms driving this are also on the ballot. What that means, one way or the other, we will know in a few months.